once again. Welcome to the Perceptional, elevating all your senses, expanding your curiosity. So plug in now as we welcome your host, Dr. James Denito.
Welcome back, my friends and my guests, to another episode of The Perceptional, episode number 13, on July 13th. I usually don't mention the date. We put it at the end as part of the credits. On my way here a few hours earlier, today was the day we had another assassination attempt at one of our ex-presidents and a presidential candidate, Donald Trump. Ironically, the implications of what our behavior is doing as humans to solve problems by removing the threat. This lecture was supposed to be about immunity, and it will be, but we're going to try and find some balance here because everything I talk about, and I'm going to talk about today, is what do we do to overcome the biggest thing that weakens our immunity, and that is fear. And today, there's a lot of fear in the world. Around the world, these shots were heard. One person was killed, at least one more perhaps may not make it. Trump had a moment of turning his head. At the moment, the fatal shot went by him and grazed and put a hole near the top of his ear. We can say anything we want about how things work on the timing of these events, but we have a lot to think about today on how we can stay balanced as Americans, as humans, and try not to solve our problems in a manner that the way our immune systems solve our problems. And we're going to go into some very interesting perspectives on how immunity actually gets the job done, because it's not pretty. And perhaps our behavior as humans has a lot to do with what is deeply inside of us. On any given moment, there is never a split second without your immune system taking some threat out. So let's hope we have a new perspective, a new sobering perspective on how we are going to be better as humans to deal with threats around us. We have enough to do with the environment and other components of this reality to survive. If we keep behaving the way our immune system does and has trouble discerning friend from foe at times or uses the wrong weapons, I don't know if we're going to get much further than we struggle to be right now as humans. So let's get on to the first concept. Imagine a world, if you will, without microbes, without the microscopic life. We've got all kinds of definitions of their sizes and shapes and their behavior, and there is a form of consciousness at that level. Except we get down to these things called viruses. We have the ability to say, well, once they get inside of a bigger host, a cell, they start to have a conscious type behavior. That's true. But it's basically just code. But if we were to recognize that the dominant life form on Earth are microscopic life, they rule this planet. And imagine when we send our astronauts out, or when they came back, we were very aware of the ability to not spread germs. We didn't want any unusual microbes coming here, and we didn't want to contaminate some other place, the moon, first of all, with the same microbes. We had a great movie long ago, remade a few times, War of the Worlds, where the visiting aliens, I'm saying that word a little facetiously, they didn't really want to visit, did they? But they all died shortly because they weren't aware of how hostile this planet really is that you and I and our ancestors get to exist on and thrive on. We're supposed to thrive here. So imagine if we could say if these microbes are here, and again, they own this planet, how'd they get here? We could say they were put here by some intelligence, even our Creator, on purpose, and that is part of it all. Or they ended up here from somewhere else, but we're left with the same question, where did that come from? And it's the same thing as to what all life is from, including us. Where did it start? But if we look at the fact that they were here before us and we are evolved from them, then they're our ancestors. And therefore, we should get along with all of them, but we don't. We actually don't get along with any of them. The only reason we call them friendly microbes is as long as they stay on their side of the fence, their side of the boundary. The microbes that are bad to us, that are evident very quickly in an exposure, we would call those like cholera or malaria, and they have no place in our body at all, but we tolerate probably 95% of the critters on this planet to some degree, as long as their numbers are under control and as long as they're in the right place. What are we going to do with this concept, though, if there was a planet like Earth without microscopic life? They tell you it wouldn't work, that we need them to break us down. They need us, they need to help us move nutrition into our body. They're part of the cycle of life. But I'll tell you what, if you really understand physiology and organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, in theory, life could exist, much of it on this planet, without their presence. They are a constant stressor to our system. And even though you may be feeling emotionally in a moment where there is no fight reaction and there's no flight, maybe you're meditating, maybe you're sleeping, therefore your immune system and your stressor hormones are in a neutral state. But that is not true, because deep inside of you there are millions of microbes, and we'll use that term broadly, being killed, neutralized, and sequestered and eliminated by your immune system. So really what we're talking about when we want to see about a world full of germs is, without our immune system, we wouldn't be here. And we're going to show an amazing correlation what this immune system of ours really may be. So here's the first thought. What if all the microbes on this planet are the immune system of the planet? What if they protect it, and their job is to get rid of things that don't belong here or limit how much life can take advantage of the planet's resources? After all, we say Mother Earth, Gaia, has an intelligence, and where we can find comparisons to weather and emotions and phenomenon. If there's a flood, would that be crying? If there's a volcano, would that be vomiting? Or an earthquake, would that be the shivers of the human body when it has a fever? We can find some fun things to find an intelligence behaving like us. Is it the planet's immune system? And are therefore we tolerated, much like all the organisms in us that we don't give that attribute, that we tolerate them? Or are all the microbes here parasitizing the Earth's resources, using them for their survival, the same way us humans are? And we say that we've been put here to give domain of the planet, and we're going to have to control all those other life forms, which seem to be so much better adapted to the planet than we are. So what are we supposed to do with an immune system response that perhaps is fighting an immune system? So let's take this concept further, that the microbes might be, at least most of them, might be part of the planet's immune system. But what if our immune system is actually microbial in life, and they are parasitizing us for their own benefit? Have you ever seen a white blood cell under a microscope? Have you ever seen how a lot of the warriors work? You probably haven't. There's a lot of amazing stuff on the internet now. But the microscopic world is brutal. And these little warriors swimming around the white blood cells and all the chemistry they make, they have a dialogue. They communicate, they signal, and it's very, very complex. The signaling mechanisms has been basically more understood recently than any time in the last 50 years by understanding how the packets of information called exosomes travel about the body with a message. And the message basically says friend or foe, or some work to be done has to be done over there, and the immunity then sends the appropriate warriors. There's an intelligence there. The immune system has carte blanche to a lot of your resources. That means vitamins, minerals, energy, emotions. And what if theory number one is that our immune system is not made by us? Wait a minute, you can say, we can prove they're made by us. We've seen the bone marrow, the spleen, producing these cells. But how do you know that the cells, the code of the cells, has not been virused, composing a command structure to make it look like it was our intention to make those white blood cells, when in reality, the organisms themselves have commandeered your bone marrow to make more of themselves. So if our immune system is not us, and it's living in us, finding a way to take advantage of us, we need to be grateful for it. This is not an unprecedented idea. There's a component of every cell in your body called mitochondria. And we found the mitochondria can vary from a few dozen to hundreds per cell based on the energy demands of that cell. And when we look at the structure of that mitochondria and its variant DNA, its genetic code has significant differences in the surrounding you and me. We believe an organism anciently got into these cells and decided to stay, and our body lets them and reproduces with more and more of them because we get an advantage out of it. The energy efficiency of our cells would be terrible if it wasn't for the mitochondria, which looks like a foreign organism inside of our cells. So now, is it possible that our immune system in general also came inside of our body from the environment around us? And then if that is true, then if it were the immune system of the planet, then it ain't doing the planet any good by helping us humans thrive upon this place. So therefore, we would probably shift the theory of where the microbes came from more as where we came from, which is still unknown, from the mind of God all the way to another planet, which then leads to the same question, of course, as to where we came from there. But the immune system, the microbes, there's a lot of similarity because every day those two are duking it out at the microscopic level. There is no place the microbes don't exist. They're in every breath, they're in every drop of water, they're in all your food, there are pounds of them inside your body and on your body. Everything that we do, if I draw a vial of blood out of my body, there is microbes in it. There's nothing really, really sterile. A surgeon can wash their hands for 10, 20 repetitions and they can still find some microbes are still left on there. We cannot sterilize them out of our world. So let's begin to understand what we are trying to grasp on how to make our immune system do more good for us, because when we age, when we die, it's a failure of our immune system to keep us in balance with the world. And ultimately, we call that a disease process. Why are our emotions so important to our immune system's capabilities, its accuracy, its strength, its duration? We've got a lot of things that we know our immune system will thrive with or even not thrive with, to be suppressed even. And we've learned some of those lessons the hard way by our environmental behavior, for instance, the toxicity of the world and our immune system. But ultimately, out of all the things that I know I can teach my patients and my friends and family what to do to enhance your immunity and what you can do wrong to bring it down into dismal function. But there's nothing more effective than the power of your mind. If you are up, if you are in love, if you have purpose, you have faith, if you are virtuous and happy, your immune system is smoking it, and it's a warrior. It's not afraid of anything. If you are the opposite of that, and there's plenty of that around, isn't there, folks? Your immune system can go down well below half. But if this immune system that we're describing may not even be made by us, but it even if it is truly ours and it's not come in to take advantage and help us pathetic humans get through life, why is it connected to our emotional chemistry, our emotional energy so much? How does it have an influence? Is it connected to us emotionally? We have to think about hardwiring, for instance. The chemistry of what I just described, happiness or not, is measurable. And we have to recognize the connection is where the gut comes into play. This abdomen of ours is boot camp for your immune system. 80% or so of all of its resources are there. We used to think it was because there's so much surface area and the gut, the mucous membrane, and that's probably an accurate assessment. But it's also where we feel so much of our emotions. We have tremendous words in all the languages to describe what we feel in our gut. And if therefore there's some electrical pattern of the emotions, the perception of them, and that's where your immune system is figuring out what to do for the day with its marching orders, that's about as good as we're going to get trying to understand there's a connection because those two systems have that proximity to each other. Let's talk about the top 10 causes of death in America and how I will prove they're all linked to our emotions because they're all linked, therefore, to our immune system's failure. Cardiovascular disease, the number one, if you add in heart attack and stroke, number one. And if you think about the cessation of blood flow, it clots, the heart is unable to pump it anymore. But it's the first thing that happens when you are created as a human. 8 to 10 weeks in, your heart cardiovascular system is formed. That beating heart is a reference point for a lot of definitions of when life begins. And from that vascular system that grows, all life is built upon that feeding of the cellular nutrition. And as the cardiovascular system retreats later in life, so does the structures and functions of the system that was built around it. So therefore, when we talk about a sudden loss of that vascular integrity, we may put a label on that. But what is it about the beating heart, a heart that we say is the source of love? We feel and send love through there. Our heart must beat in order to feel close to our Creator, and yet the heart must stop in order for us to ultimately join our Creator or the other side, so to speak, as to where we want to be closer to it. So it's an interesting double-edged concept here that is maybe philosophically valuable to understand why heart attacks and cardiovascular are so linked to so many causes of death. If we get into cancer, most cancer deaths are a clot or some vascular phenomenon that ultimately is the sign or cause of death. But if we get into the emotions of cancer, a cancer cell is any cell in your body that has been pushed through either energy imbalances, chemical imbalances, or infectious mechanisms to go on vacation, to throw away all of its genetic code, not do anything specialty anymore, and just basically live for the moment. Take food in, put waste out, reproduce. A cell that says, I can't take it anymore, I need a vacation. Think of a cancer cell as a cell that's gone on vacation, and you wonder why your immune system feels sorry for it and doesn't want to take it out. Let's go to the third leading cause of death. This one's going to surprise you because it's not listed this way by the government statistics. It's medical errors and medical consequences. Drug imbalances, mistakes during surgery, hospital infections that you get while you're in the hospital that you didn't have. These mechanisms are big enough now that they are the third leading cause of death in America. And how did we get to that level of trust where the medical system, with all of its great opportunities in crisis, but when you look at everything else, they've got nothing except an expensive journey that turns you more and more to a transhuman machine, taking away your humanity. And we are letting that happen because, again, we have to see the emotional construct as to why we have been fearful to trust a medical system that is obviously so bad. And I blame the medical system for making suicide the 10th leading cause of death in America. Think about it. What the heck are they doing to people when they have emotional issues? Drugging them? Are they trying to find the nutritional imbalances? Are they trying to find anything about their diet and lifestyle? Are they offering any kind of positive experience, hands-on therapies, natural therapies, ancient therapies, other than let's cut it out, let's drug it out of you, let's stifle it in some manner with a medical model? The number one company in Europe right now is a drug company in Norway that is making the weight loss drugs. Those weight loss drugs have different names, but they're all basically working with the insulin mechanism. We're not going to say their names here and give them any honor. These drugs are expensive. In Europe, they're not, but in our country, you can average $1,000 a month. And we have so many people using them that it's shortly, in no time, it made this company the number one financial company in Europe. Within 4, 5, 6 years from now at the most, it will be the largest company in the world in trillions of dollars of revenues, exceeding NVIDIA, exceeding Microsoft, Apple. The biggest company in the world is giving us a drug to control our appetite. The appetite, how often we eat, what we eat, the comfort foods, the simplicity of food, the ease of it, the vacation nature of it. What is a vacation for us? We said what cancer cells are. They're going on vacation, and all they want to do is reproduce and eat. If you go on vacation, you go to a nice place, mountains, rivers, oceans, and then you eat. Where's the special food for this place? And so I contend that the restaurant industry basically exists because people want to feel special, and it gives them a moment to take a mini vacation at that moment from their life. There's no excuse otherwise. It's not cheaper to eat at a restaurant. It's not any faster to fix that meal. It's certainly not as healthy for you, and yet we're spending more than half of the food budget that Americans have budgeted, if you even think anybody's budgeting for food, at restaurants. So if we want to say that our medical system has failed us miserably and has led to the degree of medical misery and ill health, then we're not going to get it to change. It exists because of how we exist. I used to say this about government. You get the government you deserve. You get the medical system you deserve as well. So we're trying to create warriors here, and we're going to give you some thoughts now on how to accomplish that. So let's start with the comfort foods. That's an interesting name. They give you comfort in a psychological manner for a while, a few minutes, a few hours. They may give you comfort because you have an association between consuming that food and being made to feel better by a loved one, usually a parent. But there are holidays that make happiness and associate the food with it. But it also could give you comfort if you're all by yourself and you just discovered this food on your own. And it changes your brain chemistry. It raises your serotonin, perhaps your dopamine. And we're finding that a lot of those foods are the ones that are more unhealthy. There's nothing wrong with a good stew that has comforting factors in it, and it's nutritious. But cupcakes, soda pop, and ice cream, we know the comfort foods. And those are what most people are pounding down all the time, even if they only get a few minutes of feeling good, and then they're miserable the next day or hours later. It doesn't matter. That's what addictions can do. But what makes us eat those? I contend that it's not really your brain chemistry, but it's the chemistry of the microbes that are inside of your body. And those microbes have the ability to get into your head and make those cravings feed them. And it is satisfying their needs at the expense of your health. And that's why we feel so bad afterwards, because they produce a lot of waste products, especially if they're yeast and you have a lot of alcohol and other toxic products as a result of their overgrowth. So let's say there's nothing wrong with comfort foods, but we have to start allowing ourselves to recognize where the comfort is coming from, and if it's not comforting truly your soul, but it's comforting some critters that live in you. And here we are again, the role of the microbes on this very, very hostile planet when it comes to the microscopic world. So it turns out then we want to feed our immune system, we want to feed our body Foods that make us feel good, yes, but also foods that nourish us at the same time. And we're going to have to create new associations. We're going to have to rethink how and what we eat. And I also will tell you that how we prepare and eat a food is perhaps much more important than even what you eat. And we're losing that when we don't fix our own food, do we? The prepared food industry takes that away from you. You just get a few minutes to put something in somebody else made. The art of preparing your own food is a big part of the comfort. It is an escape. It is an appreciation. It is a form of connecting with the planet even. So your take-home from today is your immune system is so complex it may not even be you. You live on a planet full of microbes that are essentially never really friendly. They are basically tolerated by your body just like this planet seems to tolerate us. So we want to build a truce, so to speak, and we don't want to have our immune system to do so much work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cultivate passive immunity. This is something your immune system doesn't have to do. It works alongside of it. If you ate some food that had some immune components in it, some antibodies, these are things that might come from the animal kingdom. There's some of that in an egg white. There's some of that in whey and dairy products. Other microbes, they're all capable of fighting amongst themselves as well, but some microbes can actually be a little easier on you than others, and let them duke it out. The strength of our stomach acidity can play a role, and that is weakened by drinking with your meals when you need to concentrate your acid. It is weakened by fears and worries, so do not let that weaken your digestion. We can have enough iodine in our diet. The Okinawans have incredible long lifespans because they have 10 times the amount of iodine in their body that the rest of us do. And not only is that an antimicrobial, but it also helps protect them against radiation. And we know what's happened to Japan on a number of mechanisms of nuclear war to the Fukushima reactor blowing up. We have the spices of turmeric and ginger and horseradish and chili peppers and garlic and onions. We don't eat enough of these. The rest of the world does. But they're passive immunity. They're tremendous germ killers as well as antioxidants and full of other nutrients. So those are most of the things about passive immunity. There are others, but we therefore are relying too much on our immune systems to do all the work. And as a result of that, it's going to make mistakes. And ultimately, as I said, the disease process is a failure of your immune system, and sooner or later, whatever they put on your death certificate, other than an accident or suicide, will be a failure of your immune system. So let's end with more than just the type of foods I want you to eat and delve more into the emotional component, because I said the emotions of your brain and your nerve system are going to be the biggest driver of this thing called our immune system against this hostile world out there. And like we began with somebody acting on their own to try and change what they felt was a threat without the proper interaction with the greater good, we have to think about our immune systems making mistakes or acting too aggressively as well. So there's a saying in the ancient world of yin and yang, some pronounce it, that the sum is also greater than the parts. So if we take something different opposing each other, the yin and yang, and we bring them together, we're going to get something greater than that. So we might say in systems 1 and 1 equals 3 equals 5. Something bigger comes out of little things coming together. Vitamins work this way. If you take a little bit of a lot of vitamins, you'll get a greater response than taking a few items and putting larger doses in there. The system can do more things, even unexpectedly, with enough little things coming together. And we don't want to sweat those details. We don't want to try and figure out which one of those things is going to make or break our health and our longevity. But if we think about this concept that the sum is greater than the parts, and instead say the sum is different than the parts, a totally different outcome from what we started with. This should be exciting, not fearful. It should allow you to have the unexpected in a good way. Imagine the little things you'll do in life that are good, your behavior, your diet choices, and you don't know if you're going to be able to fight off the next disease pandemic. Of course you wouldn't know that. But if you have the expectation that your immune system can do anything as long as all the little parts are there, it can do something so different, so powerful, that it'll defy how things are expected to work in systems. We call this the miracle, when somebody heals in a manner that defies what we typically see. And we have directed our minds towards that. A person may meditate themselves into that, all the way to pray themselves into that, and certainly the mind of people around them. So if somebody heals, if somebody recovers, that's your immune system again, doing something totally different than what we thought it was capable of, repairing something that was irreparable, killing off a disease that was invincible. So you are warriors. You will stay warriors, and you will be a smart warrior. You will be the perceptional in terms of how you put your thoughts together. And so, with that, in the words of Walter Cronkite, good day, America.